Hello and welcome back to the Little Craft House. If we haven't met before, my name is Nicole and I like to make polymer clay earrings. I'm usually on here teaching you guys, making tutorials about how to make polymer clay earrings, along with a few other things as well. But today is a horrible, wet, dreary day outside. So I thought instead of filming, because it's going to be all dark and gloomy, I thought we would have a little chat and talk about some things to avoid when using polymer clay. So when you first start out your polymer clay journey, it is very easy to get carried away and want to buy all the things. As you can see behind me here, I do have quite a shape cutter collection, along with all the other things that I have collected over time. However, when you start out, the first thing you need to avoid is buying all the things, because really you do not have to buy everything to start with. So if I was to recommend something to get to start working with your polymer clay, would be these 5 things here to start with. So number 1, I would suggest buying a ceramic tile. This makes it really easy to work with. It's nice and shiny, glossy. You can bake on a tile and it's really easy to clean up as well. Next, I would suggest getting an acrylic roller, because this makes it easy to roll. Your clay doesn't get stuck to it and it doesn't leave any patterns in the clay like a wooden roller would. Next up would be a couple of knives. So I've got my flexible knife here, my flexible blade. That comes in really handy for lots of uses. And I've also got the little scalpel blade here as well. Now this one has been decorated with polymer clay because I don't like boring tools. I make them all fancy. The tutorial for this is quite a way back. I think I did it about a year ago. However, I am thinking of doing another tutorial because I've got some more tools that need jazzing up. So if you would like to see that tutorial, let me know in the comments and I'll get onto that ASAP. So these are some basic tools that I would recommend you starting with. Once you've got those tools, you can work from there and add to your collection as you go when you realize things that you actually do need, rather than just getting carried away and buying all those fun things to start with that you may not end up using. Something else that you don't need to go out and buy straight away is a little portable oven specifically for your polymer clay. Now that of course is really nice to have, and I do have one myself. I have it in my craft room. It makes things a lot easier for me. I'm able to have things baking away whilst I'm working, and I'm able to keep an eye on it without worrying about things burning or something going wrong. But for the first maybe 3 years of my polymer clay journey, I just used my home oven that we bake our dinner in. So when I used my home oven, I would always bake dinner first and then do the polymer clay afterwards. This would give time for the oven to air out afterwards, just in case there is any residue or anything left over after baking the clay. The next item on my what you should buy list, and it also comes in with my what next to avoid, is good quality polymer clay. So you should avoid buying cheap, nasty, and just bad quality clay. It may be cheap, but your overall effect and the work that you do is going to be compromised. So when you buy bad quality clay, as I say, it may be cheap, but it's more likely to crack as you use it. It's more likely to be really sticky and hard to use. And a lot of the time people buy cheap clay and really just do not like using it, and it just gives them a bad vibe for the rest of polymer clay, gives it a bad name, and they don't want to continue with their journey. However, if you buy a good quality clay to start with, then you will be on your way to making some really good quality product. So the polymer clays that I suggest that you use from the Sculpey brand. There is Sculpey Primo, there's Sculpey Souffle. These two are always really good, easy ones to use. They generally pretty much packet ready, so you can cut off a chunk, give it a little bit of conditioning, and you are ready to go. It also produces a good quality finished product, and as with all the clays, they are all mixable together as well, so you don't have to worry about keeping each of your brands separate. The next 3 that I also like to use, but do take a little bit more preparation and can be a little bit more difficult to use, is your Fimo Professional, your Fimo Soft, also a Fimo Effects also come into this as well, and Cernit. Now these three will take a bit more to get ready to use, but the quality of these clays is fantastic and you will not regret using these or your Sculpey branded ones either. Now, the next thing that we are going to avoid is wastage. So we don't want to waste our polymer clay. It can be expensive if you waste it because, as you know, they just come in small packages. Now, these small packages can go quite far, but we need to get as much use out of them as possible. So there are some ways that we can avoid wastage. I like to focus a lot on my reels here on YouTube, as well as quite a few of my tutorials, and they focus on using up your scrap polymer clay. Now, one of my favorite ways to use the scraps up is to create some new colors. So what I will do is combine a whole bunch of similar colors to create something new. So these gorgeous colors here have all been created from scrap clay. So there is no way I can replicate them again. They are all a once-off color mix, but they are beautiful and they're going to create some really unique jewelry. Now, sometimes after we create some new colors and use them up and then use the scraps again and again and again, it gets to a point where you can no longer use the colors. And quite often I end up with big chunks of color that I'm just not going to use. So this grey is okay, but it's probably not my favorite color choice. So things I will do with the ugly blobs of clay that I end up with is make prototypes. Now, you guys probably know that I love making prototypes. I like to just give things a go first, see how they're going to work before I go and film my reels and tutorials and go and make jewelry with them. So I'll do a few sample runs first just to check on how things go and ways that I can make things easier for myself and share those things with you. So a lot of the time I will use these ugly color mixes that I've made up, the scraps, and I'll use those to make those prototypes so that I'm not actually wasting any clay. I'm just using what I already have. That also means that if it doesn't work out, then it's not such a big deal because it was clay that doesn't have another use anyway. I'm also keeping these little scraps here because I like the color combination. So they were just offcut from a project that I did, but I want to be reminded of those colors. So I've just kept these little scrappy bits. I'm probably just going to chuck these in the oven, bake them up so that they stay clean, and I can chuck them into the container that I keep prototypes in, and that will keep them together and it will be a reminder for me. Other things that I try and avoid wasting is baking paper. So I use baking paper on my tray in my oven. I will reuse this quite a few times, but after a while it starts to get a bit yellowy, a bit gross, a bit crinkled, which means that that can affect the clay that is sitting on it because it can take on those wrinkles. What I will do with those bits of baking paper is use them on my desk to stack up some slabs that I am in the middle of working through. So I'm not quite finished with them yet. Haven't quite gotten everything out of them that I want to. So I will use the baking paper to stack them up between each other. This saves space on my desk and keeps them all separate and also nice and clean. I also have some baked pieces here, which unfortunately, I don't know if you can see, they've kind of bubbled. They've also gone a little bit yellow because I had my oven set too high, so they've kind of discolored a little bit. But I have some painting techniques that I want to practice later on baked clay, so these will come in really handy for that. Because they're baked, I'll probably be able to wipe them clean and use them a couple of times as well for practice. So I'm not going to throw these away. I can't use them for their originally intended idea, but I can keep them to do some practice with painting and drawing on afterwards. Another thing to avoid wasting is some of the pieces that I have previously made and they either didn't turn out right, or they have been for sale for a while and nobody has bought them, or I'm just sick of seeing them. So I chuck them all into, I've got 2 containers on the go, into those containers, and I will just deal with them later. But I don't want to waste these. So some of the things I will do is, like these here, they haven't sold. So what I will do is take the findings off, take the toppers off, and I will reuse those so that they don't go to waste. I'll then keep the components and see if there's something I might like to do with them later. I might add on some, maybe some sprinkles or something onto these to make them a little bit more fancy, and maybe give them a second chance at life. Some of the other components, I may add some other findings to them, make them a little bit prettier, change them up a little bit. I'll try that. Also, other things that I like to do with some of these pieces, if they aren't quite right, I might pull them apart and put them into some resin to set. So making some trinket dishes, or I made a clock once with all of the pieces, all little scrappy pieces. Yeah, just finding different ways to use up these little reject pieces that I don't otherwise have use for. Next up on our list of things to avoid is dirt. Dirt, dust, pet hair, any sort of things floating around in the air. You can guarantee that your polymer clay will attract it, especially the white clay. I am forever dealing with dirty white clay. So ways you can avoid the dirt on your clay is to work in a nice clean environment. Make sure that you clean all of your tools and your hands before using. So if you've ever rolled a set of beads in your hands that you thought were clean, you'll know that you get this horrible brown swirl happen, and yeah, because your hands weren't clean enough. So my two best friends in the craft room are my alcohol wipes. These are a 75% alcohol wipe that can be used to clean all of my tools. It can clean my hands. It can also clean the clay. So if I find bits of dirt on the clay, I can use the wipe to clean that off. I can also use these to clean off any additional paint or alcohol ink, or what else do I use? Any additives that I've put onto the clay that I want to get rid of, the alcohol wipes will also clean that off. The other friend in the craft room that I have currently run out of, so I need to get some more, so I can't show you, but it's a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. And what I will do with that is use my little Q-tips, and that way I can be very precise if there is a little hair or a little spot of fluff or something on the clay. You can be quite precise with the little Q-tips and be able to get it off. But yeah, just putting a little dab of isopropyl alcohol on first, and that will help to remove that bit of dirt. Another way to avoid the dirt and dust is to do your sanding in a different area. So I move to the other side of my room to do the sanding generally, and that way it stops those dust particles floating around. You also should wear a mask as well to protect yourself, because if you've ever done a massive sanding session, especially if you've got an electric sander or the drill with the sanding tool attached, you will notice that your hands get absolutely covered in sanding dust, as well as all your clothes. I wear black quite often, and you see it all over your clothes, how dirty and dusty you can get. So you don't want to be breathing that in either. So avoid breathing the dust. Okay, my next two topics to avoid kind of contradict each other, but I'm hoping that I can explain it well enough so that you guys understand what I mean. So the first thing I'm going to say to avoid is hacks. You don't need to find a hack for every polymer clay thing out there. So there are some great hacks out there which work really well, but there's also some hacks that just create an epic fail. And if they fail, it's going to result in wastage and probably knock your confidence a little bit too. By all means, I think you should get out there and try as many different things as you want, which will also be in my next topic that I'm about to cover. But if you're wondering if something's going to work, do a bit of research first before you just jump on in and try and see if something works. The one thing that I am going to say is nail polish. So how wonderful would it be to coat some earrings in this beautiful nail polish that has all these beautiful, colourful, glittery sparkles in it? It would look amazing, but polymer clay and nail polish don't work. Now, there's possibly some that do work, an exception to the rule, but in general, polymer clay and nail polish do not mix. So at first it may seem fine, but over time, that glossiness will become sticky and tacky, and you won't be able to use your earrings because they will stick to other things. They will attract dirt and dust to stick to them. And overall, it will just end up in wastage. So whilst it may be tempting to add something like this to your clay, it is better just to invest in a good sealer that is made specifically for polymer clay. Now, I should also mention spray varnishes and things, they also do not work. So these aren't that expensive. Fimo, Sculpey, and Cernit all make a great range of glosses and varnishes, and they come in matte finish, gloss finish, a semi-gloss, different finishes anyway. And there's also, of course, resin that you can use, but you could mix some glitter in with these and see how that goes as opposed to using this. You know this is going to work and it's not going to waste your product. It also goes a really long way, so it is definitely worth the investment. So when it comes to hacks, I would suggest just doing a bit of research first before you go and jump full on in to trying to see if something works, because it's probably already been done before. So just do a bit of research either on Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, anywhere really, and just see if it has been done before and if it is going to save you time and money, or if it's going to be a fail and therefore just waste time, money, clay, and other product. So I talked about my next topic being contradictory. The next thing to avoid is limiting yourself. Why limit yourself? I want you to go out and explore things, try things, because what is the worst that can happen? So the worst thing that can happen is that you waste clay. But we've already talked about ways that you can reduce those wasted clays. So really it is worth giving things a go. Usually I would give things an educated go. So as I just mentioned in the previous topic, I would do a bit of research first if I wasn't 100% sure on whether something was going to work. I would also use my scrap clays to do some prototypes and some testing to see if it's going to be a success or whether it's going to be a failure. Often I will do tutorials and people will say to me, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I thought of that. A lot of the time things that I do just come naturally and organically, and I just sit there and I play with things, and I'm not claiming things to be my own original ideas because obviously everything has already been done by somebody before, but the way that it comes about is just from me playing around, testing things out. So jump on in, don't let those big ideas in your head get stuffled and stop you from just trying them. Just try things out, because sometimes things will work and sometimes they won't, but you'll never know unless you give them a try. So don't restrict yourself, just give it a go and see what happens. Brings me to the last thing that I want you to avoid. I want you to avoid focusing on making this a business. I want you to avoid focusing on money and selling and being the next big global empire. You need to start small, and you need to start as a hobby, and you need to enjoy yourself. That is the most important thing. From there, things can grow, things can eventuate and can turn into amazing things. But start off small. Don't try and start a business before you've even had it as a hobby. I see people so many times, they talk about starting this new business and then they say they've never made a pair of earrings before. Don't do that. Avoid that. You want to start something that you love and enjoy first, and then from there things can grow and you can then start your business. But just start off small to start with, enjoy it, try things out, have fun and enjoy yourself. That is the main thing, and that is one thing that Polymer Clay is absolutely wonderful for. You can just get taken away and completely just in your own little world and just enjoy yourself creating and using your imagination, and that is the most important thing. So avoid all those pressures to make and sell and be a business person, and just start off small and enjoy yourself first. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my list of things to avoid with Polymer Clay. So hopefully you have enjoyed today's little chat. Hopefully you've learned some new things. I want you guys to be very successful in your Polymer Clay journey. I want you guys to have fun and explore and enjoy this hobby to its full potential. So this brings me to the end of our little chat today. The weather's still looking pretty glum outside, so yeah, I won't be doing any more tutorials today. However, I should be back next week with a normal Polymer Clay tutorial, probably doing some earrings, not quite sure yet. So thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little chat. If you have, I would love for you to like the video and also subscribe to my channel. Also, if you want to head over to Facebook and Instagram, I pop little mini tutorials over there throughout the week as well. So thank you once again for joining me, and I shall see you again next week. Bye for now.